It can be so scary as a parent when you are trying to talk with your teenager or any of your kids and they start to shut down and they start to withdraw. And you're trying so hard to desperately just have a conversation, sometimes about simple things, but sometimes about heavy things, and you're getting nothing back. And it just seems like your kid continues to pull away further and further. And we know that fear can pop up in your heart as a parent of, I'm losing my kid. This relationship, is it forever broken? Well, today we want to tell you it isn't. And there are steps you can do today to start bridging that divide, that gap, to where you can start having a relationship that is important, that is necessary for your kid, because it's really important for your kid to know that they are safe and can open up to you, because you're their mom or dad. And we are very passionate to believe that you play a huge part in their life from the teenage years, small teenage all the way up. So today we're going to hit upon 5 clear steps you can be taking today, and also look at the ways in which we do things that kind of make it really hard for kids to trust us. And because we do play a big role on how that relationship has formed over time. And this is going to be one of a 2-part series. We're going to be talking more about communication. So also we're going to do that today and then dive into more next week. So if you haven't already, take a moment to pause and to comment, review. We love to hear your feedback. I love the 5-star reviews and hearing how this is helping your family. And we just love to get some, if you want to leave comments or send me just anecdotal stuff that's going on, that's so encouraging. You can reach out to me also if you're wanting more help on this at Kyle@artofraisinghumans.com. Email me and we'll set up a time to chat about how we could possibly help you and your family. So without further ado, sit back, take a moment to get these 5 clear steps on how to change these dynamics.
Welcome to the Art of Raising Humans.
The Art of Raising Humans is a podcast designed to support, equip, and encourage parents on how to create long-lasting, deeply connected relationships with their kids that's free from fear and shame. Come join us on the journey. Hello, and welcome to The Art of Raising Humans. I'm Kyle.
Hi there, I'm Sara.
And Sara, I wanted you and I've been talking a lot about this, how lately there's a lot of different parents that have been seeking help, and it's been around a particular topic that is becoming more and more of an issue. And I think part of it is possibly it's grown out of somewhat of the isolation that may have happened with COVID, right? And some of these kids maybe getting more and more used to pulling away. But for whatever the reason is, I think this has happened all throughout generations, but it seems like more and more we're seeing this. There's a real difficulty that parents are running into in communicating with their kids, and specifically teens, right? Mm-hmm. But also even with their little kids. Like a lot of when I'm telling them, hey, it's really important to talk to your kids about this subject or learn how to follow up about that conflict, they feel like lots of times they're getting stonewalled or don't know how to do it because the kid is shutting down, right? And so we wanted to spend a couple weeks doing 2 specific topics about
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, that are all connected, because there's kind of a theme to it. As we were talking about it, we were noticing this theme, and I think parents, you feel lost in those
Mm-hmm.
moments. You're trying, and maybe even you're shifting things, and you're working so hard, and then you're met with this resistance or just kind of ghosting.
Yeah.
Where you're thinking, I can't seem to get through, and I want to have these important conversations.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk specifically about teens and how to do that with teens. Mm-hmm. But the next week we're going to talk about how to start this way early, how to start this way early to where this kind of communication is really important. And Sara, our focus is always for all our listeners is change begins with us. This isn't necessarily, there'll be some ways to help your kid open up, but it really is about what are we doing and what have we done that's kind of contributed to this lack of openness.
Yeah.
And once you understand that, then you go, oh, it's not about blame. It's about just taking responsibility for the part I've played in it. And then once I do that, that's really helpful to the kid to see that. But then now you have the power to change the dance that's been going on.
Yeah. I find it encouraging. I find it hard. You have that parenting moment where you realize, oh, I've been doing this wrong. I'm sabotaging the thing I'm trying to build with my child. I want this long-lasting relationship, and I'm doing this, and I don't know. I didn't realize I was hurting the thing I was trying to get.
Yeah.
And so as hard as that is to hear, then the shift becomes, oh, now now I know the tools, now I know the skills, and I can shift how I'm doing it to go get what I want and to reach that goal. So it's hard. At the same time, it's kind of encouraging to feel like it's in your hands. You can do something. You're not just sidelined.
Yeah. So I'd encourage you as a single parent, or if you have a spouse and you're raising the kids together, to really listen to these next two if communication is an issue, if helping your kid open up and be able to discuss hard topics. Because if you can't do it now, it's going to be impossible when they're adults, because it's just even more difficult then. And we're seeing a lot of kids, and we talked about this in the previous podcast, just completely pulling away. And so we thought, man, let's really drill down on this, because I know this is our heart. We want to do everything we can to make sure we're communicating well with our kids about all types of topics, from really hard ones, whether it's like faith or sex or politics, or just even just what they want to wear and what they like, just having these deeper discussions that are healthy, that are us connecting and becoming closer. But before we do that, as we jump into, I want a few kind of just procedural things or whatever is going on in the future of our podcast. Wanted to share with you guys. One, we do have another date that Tina Payne Bryson will be coming in April to Riverfield. Back in January, we had a date, but I'm glad we moved it because it snowed. And it was a lot of snow, and that would have made the event impossible anyway. So it's really cool that we've got this coming up in April. It's currently April 13th. And so if anything changes there, I'll let you know, but we'll give more details as those arise. But another exciting thing is this week, Sarah and I, we record these a few weeks in advance, but this next week, we will be flying out to San Diego, and we will go to the Whole Brain Child 2.0 conference, where we'll get to spend time with Dr. Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson, and just hearing about all their new brain research about kids. So we're going to be, I think we're going to do some live stuff, maybe on Instagram and Facebook, and definitely doing some posts about what we're learning, So if you're not following us on those, definitely do, because we want to make sure we're putting information out on there. And if we hear exciting things right in the conference, we'll throw it out there. We'll make a video about it, and we'd love to have your interaction with that. Okay, so let's dive into it, Sarah. So today we're talking about why teens shut down after conflict. I mean, I've been seeing this a lot where I'm like, I can talk to the kid when I'm talking to the kid one-on-one, but then the parent tells me the kid just shuts down, right? And I try to tell them, obviously I, as a counselor with them, have a different relationship with their kid. I don't have the history. I don't have the baggage. Obviously there's some skills I have too, but inevitably I can't be the one constantly doing that. I want the parent to know how to do that. So basically here's the moment we feel like a lot of parents are expressing that they're currently in. They're saying things like they want repair, they want to talk it through, they want to do it differently than they were taught, but instead they're just getting silence. They're getting one-word answers. If you're listening, you know if you're in this, they're getting shrugs, they're getting closed doors, or they agree in the moment. This can be really infuriating because they can agree in the moment and then there's no follow-up. So it's like the kid will say, yeah, I'll do that. And then the kid doesn't do any of it, right? And this is one of the most discouraging parenting moments that we're hearing from a lot of parents. And I know, I can imagine when I'm seeing them in it, Sarah, it's really discouraging, really frustrating, especially when you as a parent are trying to grow. You're like, I'm reading books, I'm trying to change, right? They're trying to do better, and they're wondering why won't their kid meet them halfway, right? Okay. And so we want to just normalize this. And I hope if there's nothing else you get from today's podcast, it is this understanding of what is happening, that your kid's shutdown is not rejection. It's just protection.
Yeah. I think that's really, really, really powerful because it shifts everything for a parent. You need to be in a mindset that's going to help you and help your child in this situation. So I think that I love that reframe to go, okay, they're in protection mode. What's happening right now is protection mode, because it does immediately feel like rejection, or it can feel, your brain starts spiraling with all the things. And so it's nice to know, okay, I just need to look at this as they're protecting themselves.
Yeah.
So now what?
Yeah. And so we want to talk about what's actually happening there, so you have a better understanding of what is going on when the kid is in protection mode, right? I mean, first of all, and we've mentioned this before in other podcasts, their nervous system is still very active. After the conflicts that you have with your kids, their nervous system often stays in that fight, flight, or freeze kind of threat mode. And talking, I know this sounds weird, maybe you understand, but talking feels unsafe. They don't know where it's going to go. They don't trust that it's going to be helpful. It can be overwhelming or even exposing. to talk about things they don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about. And so their silence, if you can think of this, their silence equals regulation attempt, not defiance. They're just trying to get back. Think about it in your marriage. I know this has happened before with us, honey.
Completely.
Maybe there's a discussion that's really sensitive.
That's what I was thinking, that if it's hard to imagine with your child, just imagine any relationship you've had where you felt like you couldn't engage after a conflict, or in the middle of that, you needed to pull back, you needed to shut down, or you were just agreeing, but it's almost like my brain hasn't actually had enough time to really think through this. So it feels safe from the moment just to agree, but you're really not there yet. And it can take a lot longer than we think to get to a space to be able to actually feel like you can engage it. And most of the time in that case, we don't have a power dynamic necessarily. Maybe you've had it with your boss or something. But remember, with our children, there's also that added element of a power dynamic happening as well.
And if we're being honest as parents, even though you and I have never used punishment, we've never threatened to hit our kids or put them in timeout, any kind of stuff. But even our kids will admit that it might be throughout the years, there's been a raised voice that sounded very disapproving or very upset. Or I can be prone to a good old fashioned lecture, and it can go on for a long time. And even though I think I'm doing it for their benefit, it is me kind of throwing up all of my baggage on them, all of my fears on them. And it becomes very personal to them. It does look like, if I were to record it, it probably looks like a personal attack on them. And they don't want to participate in that.
Right. And just think of the disapproval that can come off in our voices, the little bit of guilt or shame in our look or in our tone. And as much as maybe we always try not to do that, I'm sure a lot of us, it's not, I'm going to go and do this. It slips in there. We revert back to those. And we, because we're also often in our emotional part of our brain. So we're not necessarily always showing up as our best selves, and those things can slip in, and that has repercussions. And that's not the child's fault. It's not the teen's fault. It's, we've had these times where their brain has learned, but you might disconnect from me. Or you might throw some, shame or guilt on me in this moment.
Well, you said disconnect. I say reject. You might reject me. This conversation might lead to you with your facial expression. Maybe you'll say it verbally, but that you don't really like me, and that your face says you almost find me disgusting or whatever.
It says is, for that moment, I'm not lovable to a child. Until I'm this or that for you, I'm not lovable.
And then I think typically there's no responsibility on the parent's part taken either. It's typically blame. And so for the most part, the kid is saying, I don't think this is going to go anywhere good. Like, I would want to do this.
The message is, I'm horrible, and if I just wasn't horrible.
And we've all been there. Come on, we've all been there.
Everything would be great if I could just not be horrible.
Well, even though we haven't done those techniques, we have seen at times our kids be reticent to have those conversations. But I remember as a kid, in my house, there was spanking. You might get slapped. You might get yelled at. And I definitely was hesitant to have any conversation with my parents that might lead to something like that, because you never knew what you might say that might upset them and then them get really mad, right? Okay, so number one, we got to know that their nervous system is still very active. Number two, teens are wired for self-protection, not explanation. Okay, like kids' brains, and we'll talk more. We're going to learn so much more about this at the Whole Brain Child 2.0 conference. But their brain starts to move down into the brainstem, into that fight, flight, or freeze. So in the conversation, it's moving down. It's not moving up. And when dysregulated, language goes offline, or your ability. I mean, think about it. When you start getting mad, I know I've gotten really mad playing soccer on a soccer field, and it's hard to put together your thoughts in a coherent way. You end up just getting really angry and saying stupid stuff.
Yeah. I think we all have had those moments where you can feel very dysregulated. I mean, it might be grief, it might be fear, name it, and you find it harder to put your thoughts together to really, and that's where we get that, man, I just thought of the perfect thing to say. Why didn't I think it? And it's because you're not in the space to come up with that. And our children, as much as we still struggle with that, our kids so much more. That's where they are. So it's much harder for them.
Yeah. And many times I hear, Sarah, the kids want us to take a break. Like, the kids I'm helping, our own kids. Like, I wish we'd just pause and just come back, because they are like, it doesn't go well. But we kind of just want to keep insisting on it. And we start asking questions way too soon, when it starts to look like pressure or like an interrogation. And this is why questions like, let's talk about what happened, or what could you do differently next time, often backfires. It often leads to the kids shutting down. Okay. And this is where we got to be honest. Part 3 of this is past patterns still live in the room. Okay. Like you can't deny what's gone on in the past. It's especially important to remember that parents, when you're trying to change from control to connection, the kid doesn't trust this. The kid doesn't know that's what's happening. The kid's like, oh, okay, this is some new way that they're like, because the kid hasn't seen it work, right? So that the kids don't trust that the change is going to happen, or even if it is happening, you're not going to stick with it.
And it's not even intentional, because remember, the brain is kind of based on patterns. So it goes, we've been on this before, and this is how it went. So if you're trying to change and they're going, wait, what? There's a different pattern. No, there's not. I can't believe there's going to be a different pattern.
I can't believe they're not going to start blaming me again.
And it's not even intentional. That's how their brain is just functioning.
Yeah.
So it's not, they're not actively doing it.
So just to give you a picture into their perspective, they're thinking, is this a trap? Are they trying to trick me? Will I get in trouble if I'm actually honest with you? And that's a big one, right?
Yeah,
they're assuming,
huge. Imagine going to your boss. I mean, how much would you be thinking, I really messed that up?
Yeah.
Do I say something? Do I hope my boss doesn't know this?
Sir, that happens.
Am I really going to own? They could, consequences are huge.
Yeah. Like everyone has told me, if you go to the boss and tell them the truth, the boss gets
not
mad.
Gonna be safe.
The boss is going to blame you, or the boss. Yeah. Are they actually safe now, or are they just calm today? Right. So maybe today they're in a good mood.
They're luring me in, but then they're going to drop.
I know what you're saying. And that's why it's so scary, because they want it so bad. They actually want it to be different.
They wish.
But they're like, I'm not going to be the first one to risk here. So trust is actually built through patterns, not promises. So that's how you help you've got to be consistently faithful to this, because trust is built through patterns and not promises. Now, we know this is hard.
I just want to, I love that. It's built through patterns, not promises. So how long does it take for a pattern? When you think when something truly becomes a habit, what is it, 21 times or something like that? So not that this is exactly the same, but I think there's some relationship there to say, before their brain is going to go, oh, this is what's going to happen next. You're going to have to do this a lot.
Yeah. And what I've consistently seen, Sarah, and I know you've heard this too, this can be really hard. That pattern's really hard to change, and because there's a lot of fear, parents, this does feel like an emergency, especially if the kid is holed up in their room, they seem like they're on the phone all the time. You seem like you're losing your child. So it's hard. It's all fine and good to say, be patient, be consistent, because fear comes in there, and fear will start whispering, what if we never fix this? What if this never gets better? What if they pull away forever?
Yeah, it's high stakes, right? This is your most important little people in the whole world. Your heart is out there. And so it's really, really, really hard. And then we fall back into that fear, and we don't act but that's not the best place to be making decisions from. But it's so hard. So I just want to kind of feel for us that we do that. We get scared, and then we revert to old things because we feel like, no, I've just got to force this, But,
Well, and then it can start making us freak out because of our own childhood wiring, especially for parents who value communication and repair.
Yeah.
It can be like, oh, I had this relationship with it's becoming just like it is with my parents, and so on. That can really get in there. Okay, but we want to help you reframe that. And here's how we encourage you to reframe it: is wanting to talk is a strength, but rushing the talk is risky. It's a risk. Okay. So wanting to talk, it's great. I love it when parents are like, I really think that's important. I want to keep consistently doing it. But if you try to rush it, it does scare the person off, just like it would in any relationship. Like as you and I were talking about this.
Pushing.
Well, I'm thinking like when you and I were dating, and there's times where I wanted you to, be like, yes, let's be together. Let's be like, and you'd be like, oh, I'm uncertain. Oh, I wanted to talk about it. And everybody knows that's the way to push somebody away. That you needed to back off, and you give space for the other person to really, what do they want? Right. And that's scary though, because you think I got to keep inserting myself. And it's very much the thing I hear from these teenagers who have girlfriend boyfriend issues. They're doing that. They're texting constantly. Every parent will go, that's not going to be good. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So here's what actually happens. What actually helps the teens to open back up. So if that is our goal, to help our kids be more open and receptive, these are the steps we want you to do and kind of think about and put into practice. Okay. And this is what we do ourselves, do the exact same thing that we're always kind of keeping track of. Number one is we got to regulate first and relate second. Okay, so regulate first, relate second. So we've really got to make sure we're not being motivated by that fear, not being motivated by the anxiety, because they will feel it and it will impact their ability to trust it.
Yes. Yeah. It's really hard to do, but with practice, you get better and better at it. Put a little reminder on your phone, put something that some go-to that just helps you go, okay, this is the space I'm going to be in. This is where I'm headed. That reminder in those moments that are tough, because that's the space it's hardest.
Yeah. So connection before correction, safety before solutions. These are some ideas, right? So basically, like Sarah's saying, I've got to find ways, and this is the hard part, Sarah, is the kid is closed off or pulled away, and the parent is at a loss for how to connect because they just haven't done it for so long. But once again, that's true in many marriages. That's true in many friendships, right? How do we connect? You got to find ways for just little touch points to bring it back. So basically what this looks like is you want to make sure that you're having a neutral tone. Okay. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah. So you don't want to come in all tearful, or you don't want to come in all angry or anxious. You want to come in just with this calm. Who do you want to talk to in tough times? So get your, take a moment to get yourself in a good space. And
take the energy out of it.
Yes. And then you're just coming in with this, we love the word curiosity, but you're in a neutral space when you're curious, you know? So you just get to that space where things are even and
I've heard some parents do this, Sarah, like the kid is playing a video game or something like that. And the parent goes and sits next to him. And the kid's even like, what are you doing here? Like, I just was interested in what you're playing. And then the kid, he's like, okay. And then after a while, the kid's like, well, hey, actually what's happening on this one? And the kid just starts to talk because the parent was just sitting there, right? Yeah. And the kid, but another parent could do the same thing. And like, what? I'm just trying to watch you play, And then like, kid's like, well, I don't want you to watch you. And the kid feels it like, this is some kind of weird trick you're doing here. You're trying to get me to open up, And so instead just like sitting there, whereas the goal is just the presence, just be there, just connect, right? Yeah. And that brings into like this idea of a low demand presence. You're not sitting there or you don't have an agenda attached
that's what I was gonna, I love that point of be really careful because teens have a little radar for that agenda. You have to be okay. You have to be okay with, okay, this is what we got today. I got to sit next to you and hear about your game. Right. Yep. And that's progress. So you can't go in with, this is where I'm going to go.
Yeah. Well, and they're surprised. They are shocked because they're like, my dad didn't even bring up the schoolwork. My mom didn't say the room needed to be cleaned. Yeah. It was like, they just sat there and just talked about my game. Right. And I know that's hard because like, oh, but that was the opportunity. Like, no, that was the opportunity to start repairing and making a bridge. Right. Yeah. So here's some kind of scripts for you to kind of keep in mind. You could say, hey, I'm here when you're ready. So if you're having this opportunity, the kid isn't opening up, just say, it's okay. I'm here when you're ready, or we don't have to talk right now. Like, I think that's a really good one.
Ooh, can you just, I feel like as a kid, you just take a deep breath. Yeah. And be like, oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. I thought this was, and lots of kids will say that, like they're in the car and the parent will try to talk and they're, oh no, I'm trapped. I can't get out. Right. But I've had kids say to their parents, I just wish you would tell me we didn't have to do this right now. Because I feel kind of like I've been cornered in the car, right?
And we need to trust that they're saying they're not ready. Wait for them to be ready.
Yeah, and then you could also say, hey, you're not in trouble for how you feel. I just want to know how you feel about this, because that is a fear a kid might have. Because in most of culture, their teachers, their whatever it is, other adults, they will be in trouble if they don't say it the right way or express it the right way. Yeah. Okay, and now let's move into like step 2 would be let's really drop the timeline. Okay, so repair doesn't have to happen right now. We would love that. It'd be great. But you're playing the long game. You're not playing the short game. Okay. And teens often need hours or days to come back online and to feel safe again, feel like they can re-engage it.
Yeah. We have to remember our brains are much more efficient at that. So literally days, and I think honestly, I felt that even as an adult. It might be days later that I finally feel like, okay, now I can talk about it. So there's also personality differences. There's people who want to rush in, and then there's other people who need all that time to process and think. And so know your child and know what, they might need more time than what you think they might need.
Yeah. I've seen that just helping teenagers. Sometimes some teenager will ask a question and they have answers right away. Other teenagers will sit there for seriously. Since I'm a very talkative person, I externally process. it is interesting to watch, and we'll sit there for like a minute as the kid just thinks, and I'm like, this is interesting. That kid just, and I know one of our kids can be like that, where they just need time to process that. And it's like, okay, this is not how I do it, but I need to respect this is how you do it.
And it's not going to help. You're only hurting yourself if you add any pressure to that moment.
Yep.
And they'll actually be able to process faster, think quicker, and be able to give you words if they don't feel like if they don't feel like they have to deliver what you want them to say, they don't have to deliver it in the time you want them to, you're actually going to speed things up.
Well, because they start thinking, what is it you want me to say? What's the right answer?
Yeah.
And you seem to be getting mad now. I thought we weren't going to get mad.
I'm totally that person.
Yes.
So I'm speaking here.
Yes. So I want to say this like real directly to you, that distance does not mean disconnection. So I know I say that a lot to parents that come in for coaching, Sarah. Distance does not mean disconnection. Okay. So they still want you. They still want to. And sometimes actually it is the bridge back to the relationship. So that totally makes sense. Like maybe we need to spend time away for a little bit. Maybe we need to not talk for a little bit. It's not forever, but we need to give it a little space to let this thing breathe so we can come back to it in a healthy way. And so we want to encourage you guys to stay steady, stay kind, and stay predictable or consistent, right? To where the kids start seeing a new pattern. They start to trust this new pattern. Oh my God, it's been a few weeks and you haven't like freaked out on me or pressured me to open up.
That's a really, really big one, that predictability, building that trust. That's so good. That's so important to do. And of course, we might mess it up. And that's when you just go and be like, oh, that's not what I want to be doing now. So I'm sorry for that. This is what I'm working towards. And I had a moment,
Okay. So it's step 3, Sarah, we want to signal safety through behavior, not words. Okay. Signal safety through behavior, not words. Because here's what kids are watching for. Kids are watching. Do you bring it up repeatedly? Is this like we keep talking about it, right? Number 2, do you sigh? Do you withdraw? Do you get kind of cold or distant, in how you're, do you punish with your silence? Kids feel this. They see it.
They're so sensitive to it. Very sensitive to it.
And so your behavior isn't saying you're safe.
No.
It's definitely saying like, you're really upsetting me. You're really, well, how long's this going to take?
It's a better idea. Sometimes we need space for a moment. You can feel yourself, and it's better just be like, you know what? I need a moment. And just get yourself out of that space and into a place where you can take care of you so you can re-engage it.
Yeah. And then instead, what we want to do, keep routines normal, like make sure we're not like getting the energy out of it. Make sure we're just doing the normal routines with them that we do. Offer warmth without pressure. Okay. Tell me more about that, Sarah. Offer warmth without pressure.
Well, sometimes, I think we've kind of hit on this, but, I'm nice and friendly and warm and loving. Yeah. But it's because I want this, it's that pressure you're doing this because instead of I'm just loving you.
Yeah.
You're just acceptable in this moment, lovable in this moment. I'm just here. There's not that extra pressure.
And I think that goes along with keeping the routines normal. It's like, I'm not freaking out. We will get through this.
Yes.
So I'm not needing to do all this extra stuff to freak out about it,
Yeah.
And then
because we can cycle between that pressure and loving and
Well, and that brings in let your behavior do the talking. They will start to see the change. They will know they're watching. They don't believe it, but they're watching. I trust me, they are wanting it to change.
Yeah.
They don't like this as much as you don't like it. Okay. And then so step 4 is invite, don't extract. Okay, so invite. So when they are calmer, keep it short and non-threatening. Okay, so like some good questions to ask is like, do you want comfort or space right now? So kind of like, would you like to pull away from this right now? Do you want some space right now? Would it help to talk or just hang out? I like that one too. Would you help to talk? What felt hardest for you in that moment? That's a really good reflective question. Okay, avoid saying, why did you blank? It's very accusatory. That's you trying to extract from them,
Yeah.
You need to explain this, we're not done until we talk. All those are going to cause the kid to pull away.
Yeah. And we just have to remember it is a win. The relationship is a win. If they're just willing to be in the room with you, and even though you're quiet and you can't get your agenda accomplished, that's still a win. Because that relationship leads to the safety and trust that's needed to have the conversation. So you're still winning when you're there. Because I think a lot of parents think, oh, if I haven't addressed it, right, then that's a loss. Then they're getting, this is a...
The point of that was to do this.
Right. But we have to realize it's like, you got to get that foundation. You want to build the rest of the house, you have to have the foundation. So I don't think any person who's building a house thinks, oh man, the foundation, you have to see it as good. I got this really important thing in place.
Yeah. That's good. I like that metaphor too. I'm thinking of if your house had a crack, you would need to have somebody come in and repair that foundation. Everything else you do in that home, it's all going to fall apart. No matter how pretty the house looks, no matter how much money you put into the furnishings, if the foundation's cracked.
And we've known that where you've had the conversation with your kid, but then afterwards you think, yes, I got the conversation, but the relationship suffered. So really the conversation is going to, it's all going to crumble if you don't have the relationship.
And I know it's scary. It's frustrating because you can't control that. You can't make them open up, be vulnerable and talk. Yes. Okay. But you are modeling this for them on how to do this in the future with their future relationships, right? So the last step, step 5, is repair without a full conversation. So this is really big for you, for all parents who are listening to hear this, for us to hear this as well, is repair can sound like, I didn't handle that the way I wanted to. Or it could sound like, I'm working on staying calmer. Okay. Be patient with me. Right. Also, I love you even when things are messy. Oh man, that's a big,
that's so big.
And I'm also seeing, if you haven't listened to the interview that we did a few weeks back with Kirk Martin and his son, Casey, who's now an adult, I encourage you to go back and listen. This is exactly what Casey's saying. Casey's saying their change in their relationship, how he started trusting his dad again, was because his dad didn't have these long talks. When he messed up and didn't stick to what he said he was going to do, which was be calmer with him and not yell at him and not lecture him, he would just come up and say, hey, Casey, I'm sorry for how I spoke to you. And then he'd say, just walk away, or do something simple like that. Success was him modeling that this is on me. Like I'm going to take responsibility for this. Right. And then that made it to where he trusted his dad, that then he could then own his stuff with his dad, and that's what really repaired the relationship. So no response is actually required, okay? There's no processing needs to be demanded. Now, obviously, I think that would be great if we eventually get there, right? And we eventually want to be able to have a future with our kids all throughout their life, that we have conflicts and we can go resolve these and talk about them in calm, helpful ways, But in this moment, that's not what it's about. And this moment is about you understanding the win is the connection. The win is you changing the pattern.
Everything else is built on that, so that's the real win.
Yeah, and then this will start to build a relationship of safety that has no pressure, because that pressure isn't going to help them. I mean, not only in a relational sense, but seriously in a neurological sense, because this is hard for me because I am a pressure person. I want to talk about it now. And typically in a relationship, you have that in a marriage. One likes to talk about it now. The other one's like, can we wait a few days? and whenever I don't do marriage counseling now, but when I did in the past, that was a lot of conflict. There was always one who wanted to wait because it took them some time and another one who wanted to do it now. And it seemed like one was always winning and the other one was losing. So the one who couldn't seem to wait a few days demanded to be done now, and the other one would just like acquiesce, and the conversation would actually hurt their marriage, because they felt like, but then the other one would just wait for days and days and days. Now, the only difference with this and your kid is like, your kid is still learning how to do this. They're still learning who they are and how to communicate with you, and there is an inherent power structure that's at play there. Whereas like in a marriage, it's this equal power structure where the kid knows you could destroy their life. If you really get mad at them, you could destroy your words. Like, even though that they mean a lot to you and I as a couple, they mean so much more to your kid. And the way you react and the way you talk to them, it could really crush their heart and hurt the relationship.
Yeah, it's just so important. And I think about what you're giving to your child, that just how amazing, how good that would feel to be, oh, you see me, and the relationship is really important, not just this agenda that you've talked to me about this thing I did, and it's not even letting them get away with it, because I don't know if people are a little worried about that, but this relationship, if all of that is coming from a deep, connected, trusting relationship, it's going to be a million times better. It would feel so good if you're the kid.
Yeah. So we hope this was helpful. Gave you some clear steps, 5 clear steps on how to start repairing that relationship with your teen if your teen is shutting down. Now, definitely tune in next week where we're going to dive in about how to create this relationship with your kid even earlier than the teenage years. So if you got even smaller kids, to where there's not this fear wrapped around talking about conflict and the ability to resolve it, because that's really where you want to get to in your relationship. We can all talk about hard things we disagree on. And in this culture, that is so important, because families are getting divided by their inability to actually just talk about things. And so people are shutting down, pulling away, withdrawing, and they're struggling with how to reconnect. So really hope this gave you the skills. Definitely share this with friends of yours who have teenagers who you know are struggling with this. I know you know a lot of people. Tell them to listen into this, and we'd love to hear your feedback on how this is helping you and your teenager. So we look forward to talking to you next week, and have a wonderful day. The Art of Raising Humans podcast should not be considered or used as counseling, but for educational purposes only.